So this is a very recently awarded career award on nudging older adults to mitigate voice interface uncertainty. And as Florian mentioned, these titles can be a mouthful. So I'm going to kind of share a little bit of what motivated this work. So on the screen, there is a screenshot of a website from the Mayo Clinic about trends of COVID-19 in the state of Michigan. And so a question that I am proposing here is, how can people be sure that the information on this site is accurate? Well, on a visual website, such as this one, you might be able to see the icon of the Mayo Clinic or in the URL that it comes from the Mayo Clinic. So you think, okay, this is a trustworthy source. I can probably be certain that the information here is accurate. Or even if you're unfamiliar with the Mayo Clinic, the site has, can you see my mouse? Okay, there's a link to other data sources, so you might be able to check those. You could also think about the design of the website. There aren't many crazy advertisements or pop-ups, so you might think, okay, I can be fairly certain that I can trust information from this site. In comparison, on this next slide, I have a screenshot of an article from The Mind Unleashed, which I am not familiar with that particular site, but that could also be a clue. Hey, I'm not sure if I could trust the information from this site. This is an article that basically links COVID-19 to a new biolab that opened in Wuhan, which sources have disproven as the essentially reason why COVID-19 exists. But other than knowing that, I could also think about what is visually presented on this site. When I first opened it, there was a pop-up that said, do you want to enable notifications? There were tons of ads on this site. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, even if I'm unfamiliar with the source, visually this is information. There's information on the site where I can say, oh, I'm not certain if this is accurate. Now, all of this is visual. What happens when this is translated to something that removes that visual context altogether? So let's pretend someone is talking to a voice assistant and they ask, how can I prevent COVID-19? And I very much doubt my audio is going to work here. And so if I were to play this, it would say, you can take herbal supplements to prevent COVID-19, right? So there's no information about the source. There's no, there is no visual information here. It's all voice-based. So there may be other cues that I use or that other people use to determine whether they can essentially trust this information. So for the Career Award, I'm specifically focusing on the older adult population, because there has been a lot of research that shows that older adults can be more susceptible to frauds and scams online and misinformation and disinformation, and that they also have some difficulties essentially assessing cues on visual websites as to whether or not they can trust that information. And so you would think, okay, if there are already lots of challenges in visual websites, when you move this to a voice-based context, those challenges will become exacerbated. And so to kind of mitigate these challenges, my goal is to essentially try to change behaviors in how people are assessing information with voice assistants, specifically older adults. And I'm not doing that by saying like, hey, what you think is completely wrong, rethink it. Instead, I am proposing to use what's called a nudge in behavior change literature. And a nudge is essentially a form of choice architecture that guides people's choices with conscious changes in their environment. So essentially encouraging and nudging them towards these better decisions. So in a visual context, you can think about a nudge as, or one example of a nudge on Facebook is these little pop-ups that essentially encourage you to change your behavior without exactly telling you to change your behavior. So this is a pop-up where someone is about to try to follow a page that has repeatedly shared false information, and the pop-up warns them about this and gives them the option to either go back and away from this page or follow the page anyway. Other forms of nudges, at least on Facebook, have been showing people links to the World Health Organization or CDC or even sites like the Mayo Clinic, these trusted sources about COVID-19. And so we have examples of what this looks like in a visual context, but we don't know what these nudges might look like in a voice-based context when the visual is removed. So that's essentially the goal of this project, is to think about voice information uncertainty for older adults and to design these different nudge tools. So there are a few different phases. This work has not started yet because it was awarded a couple of months ago. So the first phase is to understand what older adults, or how older adults experience information uncertainty with voice assistance. Then through Wizard of Oz, like prototype testing, figure out how to design these voice-based nudging tools, build these tools in the form of voice assistant applications that are accessible through Amazon Alexa or the Google Assistant, and then evaluate them over a longer period of time in homes with older adults, and to understand if these nudging tools made any type of effect and in what context. And so I'm really excited. This work not only involves older adults as participants, but also research partners, bringing in a community advisory board of older adults to give feedback on methods and interview scripts and guides, and also be participants when we discuss initial findings from the work, and eventually as co-authors on the work is my hope. But then also collaborating with different middle and high school programs, computing programs for students, to build out a curriculum to design voice applications in addition to the curricula that exist around visual applications and websites and physical computing applications, to add in that voice component. So thank you.